I'm sitting under the shade of the ancient oak tree in my backyard, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, enjoying a peaceful morning in the Greenhaven neighborhood of Pine Hollow, Georgia. The oak, planted by my grandfather nearly 8 decades ago, is the soul of the garden, its sprawling canopy shading half the yard, and its gnarled trunk etched with childhood memories, from the days I climbed it to family picnics under the sunset. I, Nathan Harper, 35, an engineer, wearing a hoodie with my company's logo, sip my coffee and wonder if life could be any more serene than this. My dog Rusty is curled up at the base of the oak, yawning as if the world isn't worth a care. The Greenhaven neighborhood is as tranquil as a painting, with tree-lined streets, white picket fences and chirping birds. The sun has just risen, dew still clinging to the grass, creating a perfect scene. I haven't even swallowed my first sip of coffee when a strange figure appears, shattering the calm. A woman, probably in her mid-40s, storms in from the sidewalk like a pink hurricane. She's wearing a self-printed t-shirt screaming Greenhaven HOA President in bold red, clutching a clipboard like it's a sword of justice. Oversized sunglasses cover half her face, and her short haircut has a vibe I can only describe as ready for battle. She marches straight into my yard, not bothering to knock on the gate, as if she owns all of Pine Hollow. "You there? Get out of this area now. This isn't your property," she bellows, pointing a trembling finger at me like she's casting a spell. I freeze, my coffee cup hovering near my mouth. "This area? My grandfather's oak tree?" I set the cup down, trying to stay calm. "Hi ma'am, I'm Nathan, and this is my backyard. I'm sitting under my oak tree, what are you talking about?" She introduces herself as Susan Mitchell, interim president of the Greenhaven HOA Transition Board. According to her, my oak tree violates community aesthetic standards, because it drops leaves into the common area, and obstructs the neighborhood's view. She even claims it breaches bylaw 12B on landscaping, which sounds like something she just made up. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I slowly blink, trying to process the absurdity. Greenhaven has no HOA. I checked the paperwork thoroughly when I bought the house. Pine Hollow is a free-spirited town where neighbors live harmoniously, without anyone wielding a clipboard to issue orders. "Good morning, Susan," I say, voice calm. "Where am I not allowed to sit under my own tree?" I gesture around the yard. "In my garden? Under the oak I've tended my whole life." She snorts, as if my presence under the tree is an insult. "This is the community's common entrance," she snaps. "That tree violates bylaw 12B, no trees encroaching on shared areas." I nearly laugh. "Common entrance? This oak was here before Susan could probably hold a pen." I cross my arms, looking at her. "Ma'am, I helped plant this tree as a kid with my grandfather. The hardware store still sends me discount coupons. This is my land, and there's no HOA here." Susan clicks her pen on the clipboard, as if documenting my crimes. She holds up a sheet printed from a home printer, full of Comic Sans and clipboard of a gavel, like it's a royal decree. "I'm the interim president," she declares, chest puffed out. "We're initiating compliance procedures, and you're in violation." I shake my head, trying not to let anger flare. "There's no HOA, ma'am, and even if there were, it wouldn't work like this. You can't just make up rules and force people to follow." Susan steps closer, voice shrill. "You're non-compliant. I'm issuing a verbal notice. Remove that tree now, or vacate the area." Rusty lifts his head, growling softly, as if he too senses she's a special kind of trouble. I pat his head, standing slowly, not out of fear, but because I know I need to stay calm. "That's not happening," I say, voice firm. "You're trespassing on my property, and if you don't leave in 10 seconds, I'll call the real authorities." Susan smirks, as if I've just challenged her. "Call them. I'll show you who controls this neighborhood." She spins on her heel, storming off with the gait of someone declaring war, clipboard swinging like a weapon. I watch her go, my coffee now cold in my hand. Rusty yawns again, as if telling me not to bother. But I know Susan Mitchell won't give up easily. The oak pride of the Harper family is under threat from a self-appointed tyrant in a cheap t-shirt and fake documents. I pull out my phone, dialing my father, James Harper, a veteran land attorney. If Susan wants to play the law game, she's about to meet the man who writes the rules for this town. After Susan Mitchell leaves, leaving me with a cold coffee and a sense of disbelief, my backyard seems to lose a bit of its usual peace. I'm still standing under the oak watching the direction she disappeared, trying to wrap my head around the idea that someone actually thinks they can order me to cut down my family's legacy with just a clipboard and a self-printed t-shirt. Rusty, my dog, yawns again, as if reminding me the world still turns despite people like Susan. But I know this isn't over. Her type doesn't back down after one rejection. I take a final sip of the now cold coffee and decide to call my father, James Harper, immediately. My dad, a veteran land attorney based in Atlanta, has always been my go-to for trouble, from fixing my car as a teen to legal issues like this. I dial, and after a few rings, his warm but slightly mocking voice comes through. "Nathan, what'd you do to rile up the whole neighborhood this time?" I recount the entire story, from Susan storming into my yard, her clipboard, to Bylaw 12B and the demand to cut down the oak. My dad laughs loudly, the kind of laugh that tells me he's shaking his head over the phone. "She's crowned herself Queen of Pine Hollow, huh? Alright son, I'll be there this weekend. Keep that oak safe, and don't let her touch a single leaf." Hanging up, I feel a bit lighter, but the peace doesn't last. Just a day later, I realize Susan isn't stopping at threats. While walking through Greenhaven, I spot flyers taped to lamp posts, trash cans, even a few cars. All have bold red headlines: "UArgent Community Violation at Lot 23. Below is a blurry photo of my oak taken with an old phone, with text, "Tree encroaching on common entrance, causing danger and aesthetic harm." The flyer lists a litany of nonsense reasons: the oak drops leaves, obstructs views and lowers property values. Signed at the bottom is Susan Mitchell, interim president of Greenhaven HOA, with the same gavel clip art from before. The Comic Sans font almost makes me laugh, but this ridiculousness is stirring up the neighborhood. Neighbors start whispering. Emma Lopez, a nurse living a few houses down, texts me, "Nathan, what's this about the oak? Is there really an HOA?" I reply immediately, explaining Susan made it all up, and Emma sighs in relief, saying she's got my back. But not everyone is as clear-headed as Emma. Sophie Carter, a newcomer, seems swayed by Susan. I overhear her telling someone the oak might be a hazard if left unchecked. Susan's absurdity is creeping in, and I know I need to act before she turns the whole neighborhood into her personal stage. I snap a photo of the flyer, sending it to my dad. He texts back instantly, "She learned law from TV dramas. Keep those for evidence, son." I stash the flyer in a folder, resolving to stay calm as my dad taught me. But Susan doesn't stop. The next morning, I find a violation notice, taped to the oak's trunk, printed on bright yellow paper, stating tree removal required within 48 hours, or face a $500 fine. The paper looks like a grade school project, but Susan's intent is clear: she wants to pressure me. I stand under the oak, watching the paper flutter in the breeze, anger rising. This tree isn't just property, it's memories of my grandfather, of days when my dad and I sat here talking about dreams and duties. Susan thinks she can invade that with a stack of fake papers. I pat Rusty, now more alert, and whisper, "She picked the wrong guy to mess with, huh? I know my dad will be here soon, and with his experience, Susan will pay for this farce. But first I need to hold my ground, protect the oak, and show the neighborhood that nobody bullies the Harpers on their own land." I grab my phone, texting Emma, "Susan wants a fight, let's show her how Greenhaven sticks together." The storm named Susan Mitchell doesn't calm down after she slaps her violation notice on my oak. If anything, her audacity grows. The Comic Sans flyers with gavel clip art keep popping up around Greenhaven, as if Susan is determined to turn all of Pine Hollow into the fiefdom of her fake HOA. I, Nathan Harper, try to stay calm, collecting more flyers for evidence, but the irritation builds. The oak, my grandfather's legacy, my family's memories, is under threat from a woman with a clipboard and delusions of power. Luckily, reinforcements arrive. My father, James Harper, veteran land attorney. Dad shows up one morning as the sun rises, driving his familiar black SUV from Atlanta. At 65, he still carries a calm but sharp demeanor, his gray suit crisp, like he's headed to court. He steps out, briefcase stuffed with documents, flashing a half smile when he sees me under the oak with my coffee. "Nathan, my boy, this tree still looks good as ever," he says, patting the trunk like greeting an old friend. I recap the drama with Susan, from her HOA President t-shirt to the $500 fine notice. Dad shakes his head, flipping open his briefcase to pull out the house deed, lot map, and a stack of Pine Hollow town regulations. "She thinks she's a lawyer," he says, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let's see what violations this tree has." We check the property lines, and as I already knew, the oak sits fully on my land, a good meter from the public sidewalk. Dad nods, jotting something in his notebook, then turns to me. "This Susan needs a lesson in property law, but first we need to meet her." Before I can respond, Susan's familiar figure appears down the path, as if she has a radar for trouble. Same glaring red t-shirt, clipboard and oversized sunglasses. She marches into my yard, no permission asked, pointing at the oak. "You there?" she shrieks, voice piercing. "That tree still hasn't been removed. You're violating bylaw 14C, no trees over 12 feet in the common area." I nearly laugh, but Dad signals me to stay quiet. He steps forward, holding the lot map, voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Hello, Miss Mitchell, I'm James Harper, attorney and Nathan's father. What's this tree violating, exactly?" Susan falters slightly, clearly not expecting a third party. She clicks her pen, waving another printed sheet, full of Comic Sans and a clip art of a crossed-out tree. "I'm the interim president of the Greenhaven HOA Transition Board," she declares, chest puffed out. "This tree violates landscaping rules, and I have the authority to demand its removal." Dad slowly puts on his glasses, glancing at her paper like it's a child's drawing. "Interesting," he says, voice even. "But Miss Mitchell, Greenhaven has no legal HOA. I checked with the Pine Hollow town office, and this tree is on my son's private property, as clearly stated in the deed." "Where'd you get this bylaw 14C?" Susan snorts, pushing her sunglasses down. "We're starting the HOA. This is the transition phase, and I can issue preliminary rules." Dad smiles, the kind that signals an opponent's defeat. "Start whatever you want, but you have no authority on private land. This paper," he points to her decree, "has no legal weight beyond littering our yard." Susan flushes, clicking her pen furiously, like it's her last weapon. "You'll get an official fine notice," she snaps. "I'll call the HOA enforcement team." Dad crosses his arms, still smiling. "Call them, and when they show up I'll show them the deed, and Georgia's trespassing laws." "How far do you want to take this, Miss Mitchell?" Susan steps back, visibly overwhelmed, but clinging to confidence. "This isn't over," she yells, storming off, clipboard swinging like a tattered sail. I look at Dad, unable to hide my grin. "You handled that like a pro," I say. He shrugs, patting my shoulder. "She doesn't know who she's up against. Keep the oak safe, Nathan. I'll prep more in case she comes back." I nod, feeling confident again. Susan may think she's Greenhaven's queen, but with my dad here, the Harper family oak isn't going anywhere. After the showdown with my dad, I thought Susan Mitchell might back off, at least for a while. But I underestimated her stubbornness. The Greenhaven HOA President t-shirt and clipboard seemed to have given Susan an unshakable delusion of power. Her Comic Sans flyers keep spreading through Greenhaven, and neighborly whispers grow louder. Emma Lopez stays firmly in my corner, but Sophie Carter and a few newcomers start wavering, spooked by Susan's made-up rules. The oak, my grandfather's legacy, the Harper family's pride, is under greater threat than ever. Thankfully my dad, James Harper, is still here, and he's not one to be bullied. That morning, I'm brewing coffee when I hear a loud engine outside. I look through the window, and nearly drop my mug. An old pickup truck labeled Turner Landscaping Services is parked in front of my house. 3 men climb out, one with a chainsaw, the others with a ladder and ropes. Leading them is a guy in a reflective vest, holding a clipboard, none other than Greg Turner, who Susan once mentioned as her enforcement officer. Susan stands a few feet away, still in her oversized sunglasses, pointing at the oak like a low-budget film director. I rush outside, my dad following, his briefcase still at his side. "Hey hey," I yell, blocking Greg's path before he can get near the oak. "What are you doing on my property?" Greg, a guy who looks like he just walked out of an auto parts store, pushes his cap back, eyeing me through cheap glasses. "We're hired to cut this tree," he says, voice flat. "Order from the Greenhaven HOA, landscaping violation." Susan jumps in, waving her clipboard like a victory flag. "That's right," she snaps. "You were warned, and now we're taking action." Dad steps forward, calm as a judge about to deliver a verdict. "Sorry, you're Greg, right?" he asks, voice polite but sharp. Greg nods, a bit uneasy. "I'm James Harper, Nathan's attorney and the legal owner's father. Do you have a permit from the town of Pine Hollow to cut this tree?" Greg blinks, glancing at Susan, who just snorts. "We don't need a permit," Susan declares. "This is an HOA order." Dad smiles, the kind that signals defeat for the other side. He opens his briefcase, pulling out the deed and lot map. "This tree is on my son's private property, as clearly stated in the paperwork. Touch it, and you'll violate Georgia's trespassing laws. Want me to call the police to verify?" Greg steps back, clearly not wanting legal trouble. He turns to Susan, voice low. "You said this was legit, what now?" Susan flushes, clicking her pen frantically. "Just do it," she yells. "You're the enforcement team, act." But Greg's no fool. He signals his crew to pack up, muttering about checking the contract. The truck drives off, leaving Susan standing there, face purple with rage. She turns to me, pointing a trembling finger. "You're not off the hook," she snaps, then pulls out her phone, filming me and Dad. "I'm recording this violation. The whole neighborhood will see how you're destroying the community." I cross my arms, trying not to laugh. "Film away, Susan. But you might want to check the law before posting." Dad pats my shoulder, whispering, "She's digging her own grave. Let her film." Susan storms off, still recording, no doubt planning a scathing Greenhaven Facebook post. I look at the oak, still standing tall, and feel a surge of pride. We just stopped an assault, but I know Susan won't quit. A few hours later, Emma Lopez texts me a screenshot of Susan's Facebook post, a blurry video with the caption, "Lot 23 resident threatens landscaping workers." Thankfully, the comments are mostly in my favor. Oliver Grant, a botany teacher living nearby, writes, "That oak is a Greenhaven treasure. Susan, please stop this nonsense." I text Emma and Oliver back, thanking them for the support. Dad, reviewing documents, looks up. "She's escalating, Nathan. Get ready, the real fight's coming." I nod, patting Rusty, now more alert. With my dad here and neighbors starting to rally, Susan Mitchell is about to learn she picked the wrong tree to mess with. The clash with Greg Turner's tree-cutting crew leaves me and my dad relieved, but I know Susan Mitchell isn't the type to give up easily. Her failed attempt to chop down my oak doesn't stop her accusatory Facebook posts from stirring up Greenhaven. The Comic Sans flyers keep appearing, and a few neighbors, like Sophie Carter, still hesitate, due to Susan's fine threats. The oak, my grandfather's legacy, the Harper family's pride, remains standing, but the pressure is mounting. Luckily I'm not alone. My dad, James Harper, is still here with his briefcase of documents, and the calm of a seasoned attorney, and neighbors like Emma Lopez are starting to speak out in support. The next morning, as I check the oak in my yard, a bizarre sight hits me. Susan has planted 3 small wooden stakes around the tree's base, connected by red tape, like she's cordoning off a restricted zone in my own backyard. On the middle stake is a color-printed sheet, carefully plastic-wrapped, proclaiming conflict zone, tree violating common area, pending community reappropriation. The Comic Sans font and clipart of a crossed-out tree are of course present. I stand there, unsure whether to laugh or get mad. Susan really thinks she can claim my oak as public property, with a few stakes and some tape. I snap a photo of the scene, sending it to my dad, who's inside reviewing paperwork. He steps out, glasses on, looks at Susan's creation and laughs. "She learned design from kindergarten," he says, shaking his head. This isn't just trespassing, Nathan. She's impersonating legal authority. Keep this stuff for evidence. I nod, carefully removing the sheet and stakes, storing them in the garage. But Susan's antics don't stop there. She posts again on the Greenhaven Facebook group, with a photo of her conflict zone, and the caption, Lot 23 resident refuses compliance, threatening neighborhood peace. Thankfully, the comments lean my way. Emma Lopez writes, Susan, this is private property. Stop this. Oliver Grant, the botany teacher, adds that oak is a treasure. You're embarrassing Greenhaven. The neighbors' support warms my heart, and Emma doesn't just stop at words. She comes by that afternoon with an idea. Nathan, we need to show the neighborhood how important this tree is, she says, eyes gleaming. I'll get the kids to make signs, like Save the Oak. What do you think? I grin, agreeing instantly. Emma, with the energy of a single mom raising 2 kids, quickly organizes a tree defense campaign. The neighborhood kids, ages 8 to 12, gather at her house, drawing signs with crayons and poster board, signs reading Save the Oak, or Nathan's Tree, not HOA's, go up on lampposts and fences, directly countering Susan's flyers. My dad, seeing the kids march by with signs, laughs heartily. Susan's about to get outdone by a bunch of kids, he says, snapping photos. He also drafts a short document, explaining that Greenhaven has no legal HOA, and the oak is rightfully mine. I print copies, and Emma distributes them to neighbors. Sophie Carter, who'd been on the fence, texts an apology after reading it. I didn't know Susan was making it up, she writes. That oak is beautiful, I'm with you. The neighborhood's unity is growing, but Susan doesn't back down. That afternoon, Susan shows up with a fresh stack of flyers, accusing me of organizing an illegal protest with the kids. She stands in front of my house, pointing at the children's signs. You're disrupting the community, she yells. The HOA won't tolerate this behavior. I cross my arms, trying not to laugh. Ma'am, the kids made signs because they love the oak. You got a problem with children now. My dad steps out, holding a copy of the deed. Miss Mitchell, he says, voice icy, you're on private property. Want me to call the police for trespassing? Susan flushes, stepping back, but mutters, you'll get an official fine notice. As she storms off, I look at the oak, still standing tall amid the Susan storm. Emma and the kids cheer from a distance, holding up signs. My dad pats my shoulder. She's losing control, Nathan, but she'll try again. Be ready. I nod, petting Rusty, now barking happily. With neighbors behind me, and my dad leading the charge, Susan Mitchell is about to learn that the Harper family oak isn't something she can touch with a few stakes and empty threats. The battle over my oak is starting to feel like a ridiculous play, directed by Susan Mitchell. After her failures with the tree-cutting crew and the conflict zone stakes, she still refuses to quit. The kids save the oak signs in Greenhaven, along with my dad's document, clarifying there's no legal HOA, have swayed many neighbors, like Sophie Carter, to my side. But Susan, with her HOA President t-shirt and clipboard, seems oblivious to the word surrender. She keeps posting slander on the Greenhaven Facebook group, calling me a community saboteur and claiming the kids' signs are an illegal protest. I, Nathan Harper, just want to protect the oak, my grandfather's legacy, but Susan is turning peaceful Pine Hollow into a stage for her power fantasies. That morning, as I water plants in my yard, 2 police cars pull up in front of my house, lights flashing. Susan stands a few feet away, filming with her phone, face smug like she just won an Oscar. I set down the watering can, feeling a mix of irritation and curiosity. My dad, James Harper, steps out of the house, briefcase in tow, flashing a calm smile. Susan finally called in the cavalry, he whispers, patting my shoulder. Let me handle this. Susan charges forward, pointing at me and Dad, telling the 2 officers, arrest them. These people are occupying the common area and threatening community peace with that violating tree. I cross my arms, trying not to laugh. Violating with an oak. One of the officers, a man about 40 with a name tag reading Lucas Reed, steps forward, professional but not overly stern. The other stays by the car, observing. Hello, sir, Lucas says, looking at me. We got a complaint about a property dispute. Can you explain what's going on? Before I can speak, Susan cuts in, voice shrill. He's refusing to comply with HOA rules. That tree violates bylaws 12B and 14C. I'm the interim president, and I demand you make him remove it now. Dad steps up, calm as a judge. Hello, Officer Reed. I'm James Harper, attorney and father of Nathan, the legal owner of this property. He opens his briefcase, pulling out the deed and lot map. The oak is entirely within my son's property lines, as shown in the paperwork. There's no legal HOA in Greenhaven, and Miss Mitchell is trespassing by trying to interfere. Lucas takes the documents, reviewing them with focus. Then he looks up, a faint smile crossing his face. Mr. Harper, weren't you the one who handled that land case in Forsyth County a few years back? Dad blinks, then laughs. Lucas Reed, you're the guy I helped win that fence dispute, right? Lucas nods, shaking Dad's hand like an old friend. That's me. Still owe you a coffee for that. Susan in the background turns purple, trying to interrupt. What are you doing? I demand enforcement. Lucas turns to her, voice firm. Miss Mitchell, I've seen the paperwork. There's no HOA in Greenhaven, and this tree belongs to Mr. Harper. If you keep posting notices or staking his property, you could face trespassing charges. Susan's jaw drops, like a fish out of water. But I'm the HOA president. I'll take this to the federal level. Lucas shrugs, handing the documents back to Dad. Take it wherever you want, but right now, you're on private property. I suggest you leave. Susan steps back, still filming, muttering about filing a lawsuit. As the police cars drive off, neighbors start gathering in front of my house. Emma Lopez brings a tray of cookies. Oliver Grant carries coffee, and even Sophie Carter, now fully on my side, smiles apologetically. I shake Lucas's hand before he gets in his car. Thanks, I say. Lucas winks. Thank Mr. Harper here, and keep that oak safe, it's a beauty. As the crowd disperses, my dad recounts the story of Lucas's fence dispute, making everyone laugh. Susan picked the wrong day to stir trouble, he says, sipping Oliver's coffee. I look at the oak, still standing tall amid the drama, and feel proud. The neighbors are uniting. My dad's leading the fight, but I know Susan won't stop. She just lost a round, and with her personality, she'll come back with a crazier plan. I pat Rusty, now wagging his tail happily, and whisper, just wait, she doesn't know who she's up against. Susan Mitchell's defeat in front of the police doesn't deter her, it seems to only fuel her delusion of power. My oak, my grandfather's legacy, the Harper family's pride, still stands tall in Greenhaven, but Susan's campaign against it rages on. Her Comic Sans flyers, slanderous Facebook posts, and conflict zone stakes have stirred up Pine Hollow. Neighbors like Emma Lopez, Oliver Grant, and Sophie Carter now stand firmly with me, thanks to my dad's documents, proving there's no legal HOA. But Susan, with her HOA president, t-shirt and clipboard, decides to go big. She sues me. That morning, as I check the oak, a white envelope appears in my mailbox, stamped with a glaring red legal notice. I open it to find a lawsuit from Susan, filed in Pine Hollow's local court. She's demanding $25,000 for emotional distress, disrupting community peace, and organizing an illegal protest with children. The kicker is her demand to remove the oak or relocate it to an approved area. I nearly laugh at the last part. Relocate an 80-year-old oak? Susan must think she's in a sci-fi movie. I hand the lawsuit to my dad, James Harper, who's sipping coffee in the kitchen. He puts on his glasses, skims the document, and laughs loudly. She write this in an online law class, he says, shaking his head. No legal basis whatsoever, Nathan. But we'll hit back, and hit hard. Dad opens his briefcase, pulling out the house deed, lot map, and photos of Susan's conflict zone stakes. He also prints an old Facebook post, where Susan inadvertently admits her HOA is just a future plan. She shot herself in the foot, he says, tapping his pen on the table. He starts drafting a counterclaim, listing Susan's actions: trespassing, impersonating legal authority, and harassing the community. I help gather more evidence, Comic Sans flyers, Susan's video of calling the tree-cutting crew, and the kids save the oak signs to show neighborhood support. Dad even contacts a colleague in Pine Hollow to ensure everything's airtight. While Dad prepares the legal response, Emma and I decide to hold a neighborhood meeting to set the record straight. Emma, with her boundless energy, invites neighbors via the Greenhaven Facebook group, emphasizing it's a chance to protect the oak and everyone's rights. I print more copies of Dad's document, explaining that Greenhaven has no HOA, and Susan has no authority to issue bylaws. The meeting takes place in my yard under the oak's shade. Over 20 neighbors show up bringing folding chairs and coffee. Oliver Grant, the botany teacher, kicks things off with a short talk about the oak's environmental value. Sophie Carter apologizes again for ever wavering, and Emma shares the story of the kids making signs, making everyone laugh. Dad stands up holding a small mic Emma borrowed from the school. "I'm James Harper, Nathan's father," he begins, voice steady. "This oak belongs to my son, legally and clearly. There's no HOA in Greenhaven, and Miss Mitchell is impersonating authority to bully people." He holds up the deed and lot map, explaining Georgia's property laws. When he projects Susan's Facebook post on a projector, the crowd gasps. She admits there's no HOA, someone shouts. Susan, lurking at the crowd's edge, tries to interrupt. "You're twisting the truth," she yells, waving her clipboard. "I'm the president, and that tree's in violation." But no one listens. Emma politely asks her to quiet down, and Susan storms off, face red as a beet. A few days later, the court dismisses Susan's lawsuit. The judge notes clearly, no evidence of a legal HOA in Greenhaven. The oak is legally owned by Nathan Harper. Dad gets a copy of the ruling, laughing as he reads it. "She made herself a laughingstock," he says. "Our counterclaim is approved, requiring Susan to stop trespassing and pay minor legal fees." I feel relieved, but Dad warns, "She won't quit easily, Nathan. People like her usually try one last stunt." I nod, looking at the oak through the window. It stands unmoved, as if it knows it just won a major battle. Neighbors keep supporting us. Emma brings cookies, Oliver gifts me a book on ancient trees, and Sophie organizes a painting session for the kids under the oak. I pat Rusty, now sprawled at the tree's base, and feel proud. Dad pats my shoulder. "Son, this wasn't just about saving a tree, it was about saving a community." I smile, knowing that with my dad, the neighbors and the oak, Susan Mitchell is facing a coalition she can't beat. But I also know she'll be back, and we need to be ready for whatever stunt she pulls next. The courtroom victory is a major blow to Susan Mitchell's delusions of power, but I, Nathan Harper, have learned she's not the type to surrender easily. My oak, my grandfather's legacy, the Harper family's symbol, still stands tall in Greenhaven, protected by the court ruling and the unity of neighbors like Emma Lopez, Oliver Grant and Sophie Carter. My dad, James Harper, with his briefcase of documents and seasoned lawyer's sharpness, has turned Susan's fake HOA into a town joke in Pine Hollow. But Susan, with her HOA President t-shirt and clipboard, isn't done yet. After the ruling, I thought Susan might back off, or at least stay quiet. But just days later, Emma tells me Susan's distributing a new batch of flyers, now titled "Call for Justice in Greenhaven." They accuse me and Dad of abusing the law to occupy the common area. The flyers still use Comic Sans, but add a new line: "Join the protest at Lot 23 to protect HOA rights." I nearly laugh. Protest. Susan really thinks she can turn this around with a few signs and an imaginary crowd. Dad and I check the Greenhaven Facebook group, where Susan posts her protest call for the weekend. Thankfully, the comments are full of mockery. Oliver writes, "Protest for what? To save your clipboard." Sophie adds, "Susan, the court spoke. Stop it." But the decisive blow comes from an unexpected source. The actual HOA board of the nearby Oak Ridge neighborhood sends Susan a public letter, demanding she stop using their logo. Turns out, Susan borrowed Oak Ridge's logo design and Greenhaven HOA name, even claiming she was negotiating a merger. The Oak Ridge letter posted on the Facebook group is as stern as an ultimatum: cease using our branding immediately or face legal action. That letter is the final nail in Susan's credibility coffin. Sophie and other wavering neighbors text me apologies admitting they were duped by Susan. Emma says Sophie even confronted Susan at her house, demanding answers but got only a snort and a slammed door. Susan tries to hold her protest as promised, but when I look out on the chosen day, it's just her and 2 friends on the sidewalk, holding handwritten signs, Justice for HOA and Entry Occupation. One sign misspells Greenhaven, as Greenhaven. Dad and I sit under the oak, sipping coffee, trying not to laugh too loudly. She calls this a protest, Dad says. Looks like a cancelled book club, but the final blow doesn't come from us, it comes from Susan's landlord. One afternoon, I see a small moving truck parked at her house. Emma texts Susan's landlord, saw the drama on Facebook, he's not happy. Turns out, the landlord, a Pine Hollow real estate businessman, got complaints from neighbors and the Oak Ridge Board's letter. He investigated and found Susan violated her lease by causing community disturbances and impersonating authority. He issues a termination notice, giving her 30 days to move out. I see her packing boxes, no longer the swaggering HOA president. She looks tired, like someone who lost a war she started herself. Before Susan leaves, Dad and I put up a small wooden sign near the oak engraved with private property, Harper Oak. It's not for bragging but a reminder that this land, this tree belongs to my family. Neighbors passing by clap. Emma posts a photo of the sign on Facebook, and Oliver calls it a victory monument. Susan leaves Greenhaven a few days later, her moving truck vanishing into the sunset. She doesn't look back, and I don't bother to care. I stand under the oak, patting Rusty, now yawning as if no drama ever happened. Dad pats my shoulder. She built her own stage and fell off it, he says, sipping coffee. But son, this wasn't just about the oak. You showed the neighborhood the power of truth. I nod, feeling relief mixed with pride. Susan Mitchell came to disrupt, but she left behind a more united Greenhaven. The oak still stands, a silent witness, and I know it will stand strong for years to come. Susan Mitchell's departure leaves Greenhaven with a piece Nathan Harper hadn't realized I'd missed. The oak, my grandfather's legacy, the Harper family's pride, stands tall in my backyard, no longer threatened by clipboards or Comic Sans flyers. The court ruling, the unity of neighbors like Emma Lopez, Oliver Grant and Sophie Carter, and my dad James Harper's sharp guidance have turned Susan's drama into a Pine Hollow punchline. But what surprises me most is how the neighborhood changes after she's gone. Not just quieter, but closer, like we all weathered a storm together. Just days after Susan's moving truck disappears, Greenhaven comes alive in a new way. Neighbors, once distant, now stop to chat when passing my house. Waves and smiles become routine. Emma, with her endless energy, suggests a barbecue under the oak to celebrate the victory. I agree instantly, and before I know it, my yard turns into the neighborhood hub. Oliver brings grilled meats, Sophie contributes homemade cookies, and the kids, who made the Save the Oak signs, run around the yard, playing tag around the tree's base. My dad, still in Pine Hollow for a few days, holds a coffee mug, recounting the lawsuit with humor, making everyone laugh. Susan thought she could take down a neighborhood with a clipboard, he says, winking. But she didn't know Greenhaven had the oak and an army of neighbors. The crowd cheers, and Emma raises her lemonade glass, shouting to the oak. I look at the oak, its leaves rustling in the breeze, and feel an indescribable pride. It's not just my family's tree anymore, it's a neighborhood symbol, dubbed Freedom Tree by the kids in their giggling stories. The barbecue isn't the only event. My yard unexpectedly becomes a regular gathering spot. Sophie hosts outdoor painting sessions for the kids, with the oak as their model. Oliver, the botany enthusiast, brings students to study ancient trees, pointing to the oak as a living example. An elderly couple, the Wilsons, stop by with a tray of peach cobbler and a handwritten note. Thank you for protecting the oak in our neighborhood. I set the cobbler on the table, smiling at Dad. Dad, I didn't expect a tree to bring people together like this, I say. He pats my shoulder. It's not just the tree, Nathan. It's because you and everyone stood up to a bully. Before heading back to Atlanta, Dad shares more stories of land cases he's won, from saving farms to stopping developers. Those tales don't just inspire but remind me of the value of patience and truth, lessons he taught me as a kid under this very oak. The law's a tool, son, he says, looking at the tree, but community's the strength. You did good. I nod, grateful not just for Dad but for all of Greenhaven. The oak now anchors neighborhood stories. The kids retell Susan's drama like a legend, embellishing details about the clipboard queen defeated by the oak knight. Emma, with her storytelling flair, turns it into a joke for newcomers. Just look at Nathan's oak, she says. It survived a war. Rusty and I often sit under the tree, listening to the leaves and distant laughter. Greenhaven hasn't just returned to normal, it's better, as if Susan's drama woke a dormant spirit of unity. As the sunset falls, I stand under the oak patting Rusty, now snoring softly. The private property, Harper oak sign glows in the yard's lights. I think of Susan, her flyers, and stakes and realize she unintentionally did one good thing. She gave us a reason to stand together. I sip my coffee, smiling. The oak didn't just survive, it became Greenhaven's heart, and I know it will stand tall for many peaceful years to come. As the sunset blankets Greenhaven, I, Nathan Harper, sit under the ancient oak sipping my familiar coffee, feeling a peace I thought was gone forever. The oak, my grandfather's legacy, the Harper family's soul, stands tall in my backyard, no longer threatened by Susan Mitchell's Comic Sans flyers or clipboard. The drama she brought to Pine Hollow is over, leaving a neighborhood, not just quiet but more connected than ever. Neighbors like Emma Lopez, Oliver Grant and Sophie Carter, along with my dad James Harper's sharp leadership, have made the oak a symbol of unity and resilience. Rusty, my loyal dog, sprawls at the tree's base, snoring, as if he knows the storm has passed. Sitting here, under the rustling leaves, I reflect on the journey. It all started on a peaceful morning when Susan stormed into my yard, proclaiming herself HOA President and demanding the oak's removal. Her absurd demands, from Bylaw 12B to the conflict zone stakes, are now just funny memories. I recall the Comic Sans flyers, Greg Turner's tree-cutting crew, and the time Susan called the police, only to be outmaneuvered by Dad's paperwork and calm smile. The court affirmed my ownership of the oak, and Susan's departure, with her moving truck fading into the sunset, marked a victory not just for me, but for all of Greenhaven. But what I cherish most isn't the legal win, it's how the neighborhood changed. Greenhaven is now a true community, where neighbors chat, share cookies, and gather under the oak. Emma still tells the clipboard queen story to newcomers, adding flourishes that make the kids giggle. Oliver brings students to study the oak, calling it an ecological treasure. Sophie hosts painting sessions, and the kids still call the tree, the Freedom Tree, like a hero in their neighborhood lore. The private property, Harper oak sign stands quietly by the trunk, not for bragging, but as a reminder of what we protected together. I think of my dad, who left Pine Hollow for Atlanta after the barbecue, but not before leaving one last lesson. Nathan, he said, looking at the oak, the law keeps us standing, but community makes us win. His words echo in me, recalling distant afternoons, when he and I sat here, listening to my grandfather's stories. The oak isn't just a memory, it's a bridge between past and present, between my family and Greenhaven. I'm grateful for Dad, not just for his legal sharpness, but for teaching me to stand up, calm and patient, even against someone like Susan. Occasionally a newcomer asks about the sign or the oak, and Emma or Oliver retells the tale. It's the time a woman tried to chop down Nathan's oak, Emma says, winking, but she didn't know she was up against the whole neighborhood. The kids embellish, turning Susan into a villain in their games. I smile each time I hear it, not out of spite, but because the story has become part of Greenhaven, like the oak itself. As the yard lights flicker on, I look at the oak, its leaves glinting under the moonlight. Rusty yawns, shifting at my feet. I think of what might have happened if we hadn't stood up, if Susan had swayed a few more people, if fear had outshone truth. But Greenhaven chose differently. We didn't need to shout or fight, we just needed truth, unity, and a tree worth saving. I sip the last of my coffee, gratitude swelling for my dad, my neighbors, the oak, and the neighborhood that became family. I lean back in my chair, letting the rustling leaves envelop me. Moonlight filters through the branches, illuminating the Harper oak sign. I whisper, to no one in particular, some people have to learn the hard way. Then I smile, raising my coffee mug in a silent toast. The oak still stands, and Greenhaven, with all its love and strength, will too. The story of Nathan Harper and his fight to save the oak in Greenhaven reflects real issues in American society today, especially conflicts over property rights, abuse of power, and the strength of community. Susan Mitchell, with her clipboard and fake HOA President t-shirt, represents individuals or groups who try to impose unwarranted control, often seen in neighbor disputes or self-appointed organizations in U.S. suburbs. Her actions, from Comic Sans flyers to staking a conflict zone, mirror the trend of exaggerating authority through social media or public campaigns, like her slanderous posts on the Greenhaven Facebook group. In contrast, Nathan, backed by his father James Harper and neighbors like Emma Lopez, Oliver Grant and Sophie Carter, shows how Americans often rely on the law, truth, and unity to counter injustice. James's use of the house deed and Georgia land laws to counter sue, along with the neighborhood meeting under the oak, highlights the importance of legal knowledge and community engagement in protecting individual rights. Nathan's oak story teaches us that in today's America, defending personal rights requires knowledge, patience, and community strength. First, as Nathan and James did, arm yourself with legal know-how, from house deeds to local regulations to counter absurd demands, like Susan's Bylaw 12B. In a law-based society like the U.S., keeping evidence like Susan's flyers or Facebook posts can be key to victory, as when James used them to counter sue. Second, don't underestimate community power. Emma and the kids with their Save the Oak signs, along with the neighborhood meeting, show that neighbors can be strong allies, especially in suburban areas like Pine Hollow, where community spirit thrives. Instead of directly confronting people like Susan, do as Nathan did: stay calm, rally support, and let the truth speak. Finally, the story reminds us that values like family and memories, like the oak, a symbol of Nathan's grandfather, are worth fighting for. In a society easily caught in petty online disputes, focus on what truly matters and build lasting bonds with those around you. Learn from Greenhaven: when facing bullying, a united community, led by truth and patience, will always prevail. Thanks for following the story of the oak and Greenhaven's spirit of unity. Subscribe to the channel to catch more fascinating tales. See you in the next video, where we'll explore more memorable moments from American suburban life.